talked about the significance of calcium and vitamin D and why we need it. And calcium plays such a critical role in the body. It's not just for strong bones and teeth. It actually is critical to the functioning of our heart. It helps with our muscles in terms of our nerve impulses and how our nerves fire and how our muscles move. So it is so critical that if there's not enough that we're getting through our food or supplement, it's going to take it from
our bones.
So that's the significant thing. It's not like something that you can do without. You need it, and your body will take it wherever it can get it because it's critical.
Is that what causes osteoporosis, or it can also cause another type of bone problem or muscle problem?
It contributes to osteoporosis, but some people are just more prone because of certain risk factors. And remember, we talked about how women are more prone because before menopause we have estrogen, which protects us because it actually helps the body absorb and use calcium. But after menopause, we lose that protective factor. And so again, we need to be particularly conscious as women about our calcium and vitamin D intake. And men are still at risk, but the rate of osteoporosis is less. And that's just an example of, the bone and what an osteoporotic bone looks like. You can see that, it's just more porous, which makes it weaker. Yes.
Sorry, just another question. Does the body actually stop producing estrogen after menopause, or does it just reduce the amounts?
It drops significantly.
Really?
Yeah, significantly.
That's why I went to another workshop, and they said that she was a doctor at the Riverside campus, and she said after 55, women should have a bone density every year.
Yeah.
Because every is not covered, but she said it can have a big effect every year.
Yes.
Every year.
Every year after 65, she said.
Yeah, and if you know of like women who are before menopause, it's good to get a bone density as a baseline. They always like to have a baseline because then they can see where your bones started, right? And they can then look to see and measure what the difference is every time you have a bone density test. They also recommend, if you can, to have it at the same place because then they can do that comparative. Yeah.
Well, look at what happened to my mother.
Excuse me. Sorry. If you're losing height, is that
It can be an indicator. Yes.
Yeah, but I think that everyone, when you get to every woman, you get to certain, you begin to shrink.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you would be diagnosed with osteoporosis, but it certainly would be a bit of a trigger, to sort of look closely.
Well, I just didn't know whether your spine was the thing, because it's the spine, really, isn't it?
Well, and some of your discs as well, though, right?
Well, yes, yeah.
They're not as that jelly type material. It just gets a little harder and it gets a little more compact. So, and posture and things can affect your height, but certainly, if there was a change in height, it would warrant investigating as to whether somebody.
I just want to tell you, my mother had a bone density in 2007. It's now 2012. She's lost almost an inch and a half, and she's at the extreme of osteoporosis. Yet in 2007, she had the bone of a young woman.
Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine.
What did you do?
Nothing. It's just as you age, you have less estrogen. It completely diminishes your bone density. and that's why you should have a bone density every year.
But only pays for every 3 years.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what they tell you, but then look at my mother, if she had known,
Radiation.
you know, she's 78,
And as we get older, our body, and this is for men and women, it just doesn't do as good a job at absorbing the calcium.
That's what I was going to
Yeah,
ask next.
as you get
Yeah,
older.
as you get older. And remember we talked last week about there are, the bone is a living tissue, and it undergoes wear and tear. We function and we move about every day. We do have cells in our body that sort of go in and clean out the bone, get all the dead cells, if you will, out to clean out those areas where there might be some wear and tear. And there's other cells that then deposit material, right, to regenerate the bone. But it's the same thing as we get older.
Doesn't regenerate.
It doesn't regenerate as well. Those cells do a really good job of cleaning out the area, but
They don't regenerate.
it doesn't regenerate as
So
well.
do we go into, what would I say, something that can reverse, never mind the cells, but the foods that can reverse
Well-
the process of what's going to,
Yeah.
what would I say, take the vitamin D that you need? Is there something that,
Well, that's why we're talking about
Yeah.
the calcium and vitamin D today in terms of you have to maximize what you can in terms of, because you're at risk as you get older,
Yeah.
and because particularly in this room we're women, we have to do everything we can. And sometimes it may mean that you need a supplement if you're not getting it from your food. But our first recommendation is, if you can get it from food, it's best because your body easily absorbs that. Having said that, your personal health situation may be such that it's been recommended by a physician that you take a calcium supplement, and you should follow that if that's what's recommended. Sometimes people, they take a supplement, but they're still making sure that they have a calcium-rich and a vitamin D-rich diet.
but if your physician has not recommended that you take a supplement of vitamin D, and you have your bone density test done, but I don't get one every year. I think
Right.
I think she says you haven't had one for 2 years or something, and you go. But I don't know whether it's possible to be in your 80s, keep the right weight, get enough calcium in, avoid.
Well, and all you can do is do what you can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, and we talked about this last week, for us in this room, we're all women, we're over 51, we need 1,200 milligrams of calcium daily, okay? Having said that, and that is whether, we're getting that from food or whether we're getting that from a supplement. You certainly don't want to go above the daily recommended value.
Of over 5,100.
Oh, no, 1,200 is what we need.
Oh, what were you saying, 51?
The-
over
the
50
years
Oh, I
of
see,
age.
my
Yeah,
hearing
that's
doesn't
okay.
catch everything yet.
It's okay.
Oh, I see, so we don't go over 2,000.
Yes,
Yeah, no.
and the rationale is that actually too much calcium can be harmful. It can give you certain health conditions. Pardon me? Kidneys. You can get calcification in your muscles.
Could your bones become brittle?
And it actually does the reverse, where
It eats
the bone, it weakens the bone.
So whether you're over 51, it doesn't matter whether you're 101, you don't take more than 2,000.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And we'll talk about today and next week when we go through the labels, how you can kind of guesstimate how much you're getting, okay? I don't want you to get paranoid and start calculating every, milligram, because there's some simple strategies that you can use to to make sure you're getting enough.
And calcium and vitamin D is two different things.
Calcium and
Because I
vitamin
noticed you
D,
mentioned,
yes.
I get enough vitamin D, but D and calcium are two different things.
Yes,
And
yeah,
I
the D
think-
helps you to absorb the calcium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have another
Yep.
question, if I may. You said last week that you shouldn't take calcium and iron.
Pardon me?
You shouldn't take calcium and iron supplements
Together at the same time.
Oh, okay.
You can take them,
Oh, that's what
but
I
do
was
not.
clear about.
Yeah, if you get up in the morning and you
So you don't
decide.
take, yeah, of course,
Yes.
because one is going to act against the other.
That's right.
Now, does that apply also to vitamin D?
No, vitamin D you can take
You
anytime.
can take it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the vitamin D.
But it's absorbed more if you take with your calcium. No, is that happen?
Some people say that, and you can, because, well, if you take your vitamin D helps the body absorb calcium. Okay, so theoretically, it's not a bad idea. You can take it together, but the thing about vitamin D is vitamin D is fat soluble, so it means it gets stored in the body, in your fat cells in your liver. Okay, so you always, you could take your vitamin D, if you forgot to take it today, you could double up tomorrow, because it's just going to store it, okay? Versus calcium, which is water soluble, which means that you can only, in fact, your body can only absorb about 500 milligrams of calcium in one shot, and the rest, you're just going to pee it out. Okay, so the body doesn't store it in special places like it stores the vitamin D. So the body can draw upon the vitamin D at any time, right? Because it's storing it in the fat cells. But you still don't want to take too much. But it's okay if you didn't take it one day, you wanted to take it and double up the next day. It's fine. Okay.
I noticed, I looked at the bottle that we have of calcium. I don't take it myself because I think I have enough dairy products in my life. But my mother's bottle is 300 milligrams plus vitamin D,
Okay.
200 units.
Okay.
So maybe it's better to buy those 300 milligram bottles because then you have to take 2 or 3 a day, therefore spreading how much your body absorbs. Because many times they sell those vitamin, calcium in how many I don't know.
Well,
maybe
600.
600. Oh, okay.
I broke mine in half.
Yeah, but then you can buy it already at 300, you know.
But do you remember what
I take
I
600.
mentioned last week?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to get past this slide. Check your calcium bottle for how much elemental calcium is in there, okay? Because mine is something like 1,500 milligrams, just on the bottle. You think, oh, well, what, you know, why would I take 1,500? But it's a compound. When you actually look at the label and it breaks it down, the pure calcium, which is called the elemental calcium, there's only 600 milligrams in the tablet that I take. So, you know, in terms of absorption, then that's pretty on par with what we're saying, 500 milligrams is what you can absorb in one shot, right? So you have to check for the elemental calcium. When you're trying to calculate that upper limit of 2,000, it's the elemental calcium that you're looking at in your tablet.
That it's, because I have this number, they said 1,200.
Yeah.
Okay, first. And after that, they said calcium 600
Yes.
milligrams.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm taking, and I take that to 1 in the morning.
Okay.
Sorry, and 1 now at lunchtime.
Right. So it makes sense,
Yeah.
right? Once you look at the elemental calcium. If you didn't know that and you were calculating, you go, my God, I'm taking like, you know,
Yeah.
2,400 or whatever, and that doesn't make any sense based on what we're discussing. So you really have to look at the bottle and look at how it's broken down.
Is it better to have it with food? Because you know how certain things they say you must take with food, or
Yeah.
an hour before your medication, or with fat, something with fat food.
The calcium, if the calcium that you're taking is calcium caltrate, it's better to take it with food just because of the GI symptoms that you're going to get. Yeah.
With food?
Yeah. So that way you won't get any stomach upset and nausea. Calcium citrate is, I think it upsets the stomach less. Yeah. And that's also the difference. You'll notice if you buy a bottle of calcium that is made up of carbonate versus citrate, the amount of elemental calcium will be different. So calcium citrate has a higher level of elemental calcium than the calcium carbonate.
And that one without food?
You'd have to, it doesn't matter. Apparently, it upsets your stomach less. But you have to be the judge. Okay? So we talked about we need 600 units, international units, up until the age of 70, between 51 and 70 years.
Is it all in the thing, in the booklet?
Yeah.
Good.
And if you're over 71, then you need 800 units. Again, you can get vitamin D from your food, but it's very difficult to find vitamin D naturally in food. Typically, many of the foods that we get it from are fortified, like milk. That's why we recommend that at the bare minimum, and I know people are taking more than 400 international units, but at the bare minimum, everybody over 51 should be taking 400 international units of vitamin D. And it may be already in the calcium. If you are taking a calcium supplement, it may already be there. So you just have to check if you're taking. Okay? And the rationale, again, remember, it's hard to find naturally occurring in food. We probably, through food, maybe get about 200 to 300 international units. And that's even if we're eating a very milk-based diet and we have a lot of dairy. But it's really hard to get that 600 or 800 total. So we really do recommend that. And we live in a northern climate, so we're not getting it from the sun, plus we're slathering on sunscreen a lot, and we don't want skin cancer. And as we get older, again, our body just doesn't synthesize that vitamin D from the sun as well. So, another reason we have to be careful.
But it can be checked by your family.
Exactly, but that can be checked by your family doctor. They can. I'm not sure if it's covered once a year, but they can check for your vitamin D levels in your blood.
It was missing for me. They called me and they said that
Did you just ask for a family doctor and she will check that?
Yeah, when they do your blood
test.
Yeah.
Yep. When they do blood work, it's there. So, as I said earlier, you can, your body absorbs calcium much more easily from food. It's easier on your system. There has been it's very recent research, it's been in the last year, that, mega doses of calcium from supplements can be difficult on your body in terms of increasing cardiovascular risk. This is what they're thinking, yeah. Because remember, we talked about how calcium is important in terms of regulating your heart. So they're looking at those mega doses of calcium. So our message is, if you can, but please, if you've been recommended by a physician to take your supplement, continue to do so. So where can you get it from your food? Obviously, the easiest is, when we talk about food groups, is from the milk and alternatives. Those are some key sources. There's milk, yogurt, cheese, fortified beverages like soy and almond. But you have to check if you're not a milk drinker, but you like to drink soy and almond milk, check the label. And next week we'll go through label reading. I'm just going to shut the door. Is it?
Yes, it is a bit noisy, isn't it?
So you have to check the label to make sure it is fortified. Okay. And the
So
same.
milk is in calcium and also vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
You get it from both.
Yeah, so and that's an important thing, because if you have 3 servings of milk product, you're going to meet your daily recommended value.
3 serving could be a cup?
A cup. It would be a cup of milk. Cheese is, we've got some portion size when we go through the food activity. We can look at how much cheese. Yogurt is about 3/4 of a cup. You'll get the calcium in the yogurt, but you have to check for vitamin D. Not all yogurt has vitamin D in it, so don't assume that you're getting it from your yogurt. There's only certain yogurt, and it has to.
If you're not, when you say milk, it's not 1 cup a day.
No,
Oh, no.
it's a cup is a
Serving.
serving. So 1 cup of milk is a serving, and
Okay.
yeah, we'll go through that.
But that can be either drinking milk, or it can be in what you make in a pudding, or what you put into
Absolutely,
tea,
yeah,
or in
yeah.
some sorts.
Yeah.
And kefir, does that, what would I say, kefir have something, it's fortified, is that,
Again, you'd have to check the
Oh, I
label.
see.
My recommendation, actually with all of this, is to check the label,
Yes.
because you'll also find, and we'll talk about this next week, you could pick up 2 yogurts, and the percentage of calcium in one versus the other for the same amount could be very different. And the same with the vitamin D. So, and we're going to look at some empty containers next week, so you can, check and see for yourself.
what about probiotic? Is that, you have to check so carefully too, or a probiotic?
It usually, because that's a big trend these days.
Yes.
They'll slap that on there so you know it's probiotic. But
That may
They all
not-
are.
yeah, because it's a yogurt.
Yeah, but it may not be, say, have the calcium in it, yeah.
It'll have calcium, but you need to check the percentage.
Percentage.
Because we're talking, when you purchase something, you want to get, it's sort of like the best value for your dollar, right? And if you're going, well, I'm really going to try to get my 3 servings of calcium and vitamin D from my food, and I really like milk and yogurt, so that's what I'm going to do, you might as well get the best choice, right? Okay, so, and the other thing I wanted to say about milk and alternatives, and I do have, I have a fact sheet here on Best Buys, and some tips around Best Buys for milk and alternatives. But the other thing you can do is, with your cooking, you can also boost, like if you're making a soup or something, and you can make it creamy by just tossing in some skim milk powder. It contains the same amount of calcium and vitamin D, and it's cheap. It doesn't go bad. You can keep it for about 6. Yeah, well, fresh milk is fine, but this is an easy way to, without increasing a lot of volume, you can throw in powdered milk into a soup that you've already made.
So what makes, if you were to make milk out of it, then that amount of dry milk powder that you mix in a cup
Yep.
of milk would have the same amount of
Yes.
calcium as a
Yes,
glass of milk.
it's
Okay.
just as nutrient rich
Okay.
as milk.
I raised my son on half skim, or powder and half milk.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's very
nice.
healthy, and that recommendation comes from Eat Right Ontario and their dietitians. So that's a reliable piece of information. And I have a little handout here about skim milk
Oh, great.
powder.
I never buy powdered stuff, but I love making soups and things.
Well, even if you make a pasta sauce and you just want to make it maybe creamy, you could just toss in some Skim milk powder. Meat and alternatives. So, canned fish that have bones, but the trick here is you have to keep the bones in.
You can eat them, alright? Can the body digest them? I'm always scared
The
of
bones are very soft, so if you take a can of salmon, take it out and mash it up. Mash it up well. It's a beautiful source of calcium.
Because I've been buying the skinless and boneless, because I'm always scared of getting bones stuck in my throat or something.
I
So
understand.
if I see them, I'm picking them out, you know.
Just mash it up really, really well.
Okay.
Well, what about,
But she's talking about the canned one, the other one you can't.
No.
Only
not
the canned.
Just
Oh,
the
yes, I
can.
realize that.
Just the can. I don't want anybody choking on a big fish.
well, how does that canned fish with the bones compare with fresh salmon? Because you're not eating the bones of
Yeah,
fresh
and it's
salmon.
not going to be the same.
Not going to be, so you get more out of the canned fish.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And because of the process, the canning process, those bones just get softer.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so
Yep.
fresh salmon is cost you a fortune, but
But it's good. It's got omega-3s and it's a good alternative to meat.
well, I know, but once you've tasted the fresh salmon, the canned salmon.
I know.
Yeah, not
It depends what kind you buy. It's just like tuna. Some people buy flake tuna.
Yeah.
Always buy solid tuna.
Yeah.
It's like chicken.
Yeah.
If you buy the tuna in pieces, or it's not the same
Yeah.
at all.
The taste is.
Yeah, and always buy the sockeye salmon.
Yeah.
That you will love that.
Well,
If you buy the pink salmon, it's good.
Yeah,
But
the
sockeye
sockeye,
is more expensive, but it tastes better.
but the sockeye in tins you're talking, but I'm
Yes.
talking about
Fresh.
good salmon, fresh salmon
Yeah.
versus the tins
Yeah.
that way. And,
But it's still, that's a good source.
Yeah.
Salmon is a good
I
food
ate
choice.
that.
Yeah.
Last night we make salmon
Uh-huh.
and the skin was there and
I love the
cut
skin.
it.
Me too, I love the skin.
It was crispy a bit.
Does anybody like tofu?
I do eat it.
I can have that on
If you like tofu, the firm tofu is a better choice for calcium. It has actually about 5 times as much as the silken tofu.
Wow, I used to like the dessert kind.
Or the dessert one, yeah.
Well, I use it, I put it in with a vegetable melange
Right.
that I mix
Yeah.
it in, and I use tomato and other spices with the tofu to
Perfect.
to eat tofu on its own.
On its own, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty, especially firm.
Yeah.
It's pretty rubbery.
Well, you see, I bought some in a box. It's been there 3 weeks. I threw it out. I don't know what it is. I have this terrible fear of not being able to make it taste good, so I don't even bother making it.
That's right, that's why I
Use
don't buy it.
spices.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You do.
It's pretty good.
Dried beans, you know, if you make baked beans, it's a good calcium source. And nuts, the almond, Brazil, hazel, and walnuts, and almonds really stand out in terms of being a calcium source. And
What do they
we'll
mean
look at
dried
that.
beans? You want to cook it or what?
Like,
Well, no, you have to
so like
cook it,
kidney
right.
beans and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and dry.
Yeah.
Cook it on dry.
Yes.
What about
So they're
mackerel?
listed
I
in
heard
the-
that
sorry.
the king mackerel is not good, it has a lot of mercury.
Well, and that's the thing about fish, that, you know, they want you to eat fish, but you need to, yeah, your fish choices need to be,
Salmon.
yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't get the importance of
The mackerel, she was saying
Oh,
that
I
their
see.
mackerel can be a fish that's high in mercury.
I see.
Oh, okay.
So on this list here, so these nuts, so the almonds, are they put in the order, or is that only in alphabetical order that they're put?
It's just alphabetical there, but almonds do stand out.
They stand out, okay.
Yeah. Yep. Vitamin D, it is in fatty fish, but it, you know, the amounts that you're going to get from some of these are low, yeah. And it is in egg yolks.
I didn't know they have a calcium almond and walnut, but I know they have a
Can you speak up? We can
omega-3.
hardly hear you.
Omega-3.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
always a snack with walnut
Yeah.
and almond.
It's a good,
And
healthy
I
snack.
make my own trail mix.
Mhm.
Cranberry, walnut, cashew, almond. I roast it a little bit.
You're
dry
gonna make
roast
us
it.
hungry.
I dry roast it a little bit and it's flavorful. You can't imagine. Dry
It
roast.
sounds
Does it lose
delicious.
its
Yeah.
nutrient content when you roast it?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, not that I know of.
Because I use mine fresh all the time, and I said,
Yeah.
when I see it served to me, I said, geez, what a waste of, in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, what a waste
You know,
of-
I think the thing is
Tasty though.
yeah, it is tasty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
but I have mine in
and
the
if you're not,
jar.
if you're not salting it,
No, you
then,
don't serve it. Don't put
you know, it's a
oil.
good healthy choice. It's a
Yeah,
good
You
snack.
don't burn it.
Sorry,
just
what
a
are we
little
talking
bit.
about? What's a good snack?
Nuts.
Oh, nuts.
Nuts,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, of course within reason,
And seeds.
because they are high in fat, but, you know, quarter cup of nuts or seeds is a good snack.
Yeah,
Somebody said 10.
No.
10 nuts. 10 is enough because
10
of
is
the high
enough.
fat.
Just a
Yeah.
handful only.
I didn't,
Quarter cup is,
yeah, I didn't see seeds on that previous.
yeah.
Should have
Well, in
some
terms of a snack, it's a good snack.
Yes.
Yeah.
But does it have the same
Uh,
amount and, you know, any quantity wise?
yeah. Yeah, well, it's still, you can have a quarter cup of
Seeds?
seeds, but I don't know about the calcium intake. It's a good snack, but it may not give you,
Thank you.
Oh, you like it?
I'm just looking here,
Helps me
yeah.
remember.
Almonds, a quarter of a cup, have 155 milligrams of calcium, but there's no vitamin D.
But seeds are not mentioned on that.
No.
wall, yeah.
No. Okay, vegetables and fruit. Somebody who doesn't like milk can buy fortified orange juice. Good source of calcium, and you can get some with vitamin D as well. But make sure you read the label, because some of them will say, you know, don't take more than 1 glass a day, because they really
A lot of sugar.
put a lot in there.
They put a lot of sugar with the juices.
Yeah, there is a
I
lot of
don't know
sugar.
why.
Yeah.
They send lemon too, eh? They have vitamin D, lemon, and kiwi.
Kiwi, yes. I hear,
Yeah.
well, I don't know about
Lemon
D,
too,
sorry.
they said-
C,
they said
C.
They
C
have
is
more
kiwi.
than orange. I don't know, I heard that on TV.
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
I'm not sure.
I know kiwi, it's vitamin C. 1 kiwi, you have a day's
Yeah, you
worth,
have a lot of
day's
vitamin
worth.
C, yeah. So, you can also get calcium in spinach, bok choy, rapini, kale, turnips, beets, and green soybeans. Again, vitamin D is in fortified orange juice.
How do
But
you
you have
make
to
these
read.
soybeans? How do you make them?
I don't know.
You don't either.
I don't cook with them.
Because there's a big craze about that being the
Yeah,
best.
yeah. Well, you can eat them raw and.
But they have a lot of phytoestrogen.
Yes.
It's not good for.
Yes.
I get the canned ones, so,
And
sorry, the
the soya beans?
soybeans I get.
You get the canned ones? And how do you make them?
Anything that I use with my rice and beans and all
Okay.
that stuff, tomatoes and all that stuff, and for some chicken.
Throw them in there.
How do you pronounce that name? Is it edamame?
It's hard to say. I never know.
Edamame?
Edamame. That's it. That's how Dr. Oz says it. Edamame.
Oh, well, if he says it like that, then.
Then it must be right.
That's it.
It's gotta be right.
He's gone now.
And in terms of fats and oils, vitamin D is in cod liver oil, and actually a fairly good source of vitamin D is in margarine. They fortify margarine.
Oh.
So a teaspoon, let me just check here. A teaspoon has about 27 international units of vitamin D,
Oh, wow.
which you will find
Wow.
for most things that's pretty high. And butter only has about 3 for the same amount.
Yeah.
My son, when he was 15 months old, he quit walking, stuff like that, and they put him on cod liver oil,
Okay.
and he was anemic. And
Okay.
that's why we got him today.
Yeah, and
I grew up in Britain after the war, and how we had a teaspoon of cod liver oil.
there's some controversy over it now. The cod liver oil is not the same as it was when we were kids. Again, the recommendation would be, maybe try to get it more from from a fatty fish rather than taking the actual supplement.
So I'm wondering about what I was saying about my son. I wonder if he lacked vitamin D as a baby.
It could be. Could be.
Interesting. I've never heard of that. But
Yeah.
I know in school we used to get a teaspoon.
But we
Yeah, well, I know when I was little, it was sort of like, the cure
Years
for
ago.
everything.
But I don't think they do that anymore.
No. So, just to sort of finish off the formal part before we get into the food samples, sort of 7 tips for healthy bones would be, have 3 servings of milk and alternatives a day. That's the easy way to get your calcium and vitamin D from food. If you like milk and you like yogurt, that's the easy way. You could look for foods and beverages fortified with calcium and vitamin D, but the trick there is you really do need to read the labels to make sure it's in there. Not all orange juice has calcium and vitamin D in it. It has to be fortified. The label has to say that it's in there, okay? And we'll see that next week as well.
Excuse me again about having less tea. I know about coffee, but I'm listening where they say tea is so healthy for you.
Right.
Black tea is supposed to be healthy for you. Green tea is supposed to be healthy for you, but they don't say that you should have less. They don't say you should have less than 4 cups of green tea.
Yeah, well,
White tea, no?
the thing about caffeine and calcium is that the caffeine affects the absorption of calcium.
Yeah. But I'm not arguing for it, but the tea
Yeah.
has so much less caffeine than
Yeah.
and
I think the message is just moderate.
moderate.
4 cups is still a healthy amount of caffeine.
Well, it goes quickly. If you have 2 cups of tea in the morning, and you have to it doesn't take long to get through 4 cups of tea.
No,
I understand, I'm like you.
Third tip, you could try skim milk powder that we talked about already. We've got the handout for that. Less tea and coffee, chatted about that. Watch your salt. So, salt can interfere with the absorption, and really, it's more, it's probably less shaking salt on your food. It's eating processed food that already has a high amount of sodium in it. So if the less processed stuff you eat, it's less of an issue. Like if you're preparing things from scratch and, you're probably, it's things that have sauces and things that have been already mixed and prepared for you, frozen, that you throw in. Always check the sodium on the label.
So tell me too, with salt, there is regular salt, sea salt, and kosher salt.
Don't think it matters.
Don't think it matters, even though they tell you on recipes that kosher salt
It's-
will make it better.
Yeah, in terms of what we're talking
That
about,
doesn't make any difference.
No.
Yeah.
I have a question about eggs, because that to me is protein, but it's also to me dairy. For some reason, I always think of eggs as being dairy products. I don't know why.
they're not.
They're not, because it's had nothing
You
to do
just
with
get them
milk.
in the dairy section.
Yeah. But, do eggs have vitamin D?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
With
there
eggs?
is. Egg yolk,
Egg yolk, yeah.
not the white, but the
No,
yolk.
the yolk.
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure on that.
Yeah.
Some they say the egg increases the cholesterol.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's
They say
an
it's
ongoing debate about
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
And
I have 2 almost every day, and I have no
Yeah.
cholesterol problems.
it's an ongoing debate. And again, you know, everything in moderation,
What
right?
is this?
Egg yolks.
Oh, egg yolks, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do yours
Cholesterol.
anyway? How do you do your eggs?
Fry them.
I like my bowl.
Number 6, limit alcohol intake again. They say no more than 2 drinks most days. I would suggest that there should be several days where you're not having alcohol. But again, alcohol intake can interfere with calcium absorption.
Well, they're telling you how good red wine.
wine, yeah.
Having maybe not, 6 ounces, but maybe having 3 ounces of red
Yeah,
wine.
it's fine.
Well, I heard on TV, 9 women should have 9 drinks per week. That's it.
Yeah.
9
Under
wine?
9 drinks, no more.
Which, all women or what?
Yeah. And for men, it was just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
that's one drink a day, and then for 2 days.
Yeah, because I have a friend who's been drinking wine every night.
Yeah.
She went to see the doctor, and the doctor says, your liver and your enzymes in your liver aren't good. She said, well, I only have 2 or 3 glasses a night
2 or
with
3.
my husband. And she's in denial. I said, you know what, my friend, you're in denial.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
keeps on refusing to accept the fact that it's not
too
good for her. And I
This is
said,
dangerous, to become alcoholic, because you take every night.
oh, yeah.
Me, one point, no, I like that when I have companies
Yeah,
once
yeah.
in a while.
Yeah.
That it's make me okay, it's fun.
It's special.
Special.
Yeah.
But every night, oh boy, no.
So if she has
It's too much for
But then
me.
if you think of it, she has 2 a day. So 5 times 2, that's 10. That's a lot.
That's
If
fine.
it's 5
What
days,
about the
7
2?
days.
What about the weekend?
Yeah. She probably has more on the weekend. So it's 9 a week, they said,
But
for
I
women.
like when I'm in holidays.
Yeah.
I'm every night.
Yeah, we're talking about our friends and not ourselves.
Of course you are.
What did you say?
I said, we're talking about our friends, not ourselves.
No, but I was surprised, that 9 was the limit
Yeah.
on this. I forget who was saying it. It wasn't Dr. Oz. It was somebody else.
Yeah, they have developed low-risk drinking guidelines and the relationship to, liver issues and chronic disease and that kind of thing. If you look at any recommendations, it's sort of preventative recommendations for any chronic disease, they're going to tell you to limit your alcohol.
Oh, yes.